I'm here today with Jensen of Witchery to talk about Nightside, out July 22nd on Century Media Records. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's busy times for you with the album just around the corner. How excited are you to finally see this album reach the daylight?
I mean, there's been quite a few album releases now when I look back, over the bands that I'm in and have been in. But this album is special because it is the first concept album that we've done. And so you never know what people are going to think. And, yeah, so it's special. It is a special album.
Take me a little bit behind the scenes when it comes to the creative process, specifically for an album like this, Nightside. How was the process for you?
Well, this album was written during the pandemic, and like Sweden, like everywhere else, there was lockdowns and restrictions and everything. So we live in different cities, so we couldn't rehearse, which we usually do. We are a rehearsing band, and we throw ideas together, and we kind of, jam it out and see what happens. This album, I wrote entirely on the computer. And it's the second time I've done this. First time I did it was with the Witchery album. So this album started out, I started writing everything, and I was about halfway through, and I was out walking the dog, which is good for thinking and being creative. I recommend it. A lot of people listen to pods or music. As soon as they do something, they always have something occupying their attention. But I like to get bored, so my brain starts to, invent things to do. But yeah, so walking my dog late one night, I saw the full moon, and of course, I started thinking about King Diamond and blah blah blah, and then, man, wouldn't it be cool to do a concept album? And I thought, naive as I may have been, that coming up at being a musician, I express myself through music, not through lyrics, so to say. So I thought coming up with one topic that I can kind of spread out over, X number of songs is easier than coming up with 10 different cool topics. So yeah, I'm gonna do a concept album, and I wasn't prepared for. I mean, yeah, this is gonna be a long answer, but this is what I kind of went through. When you write a story, you need to have some dynamics. There's some action here, there's some contemplation here, there's some describing blah 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 there, and it kind of varies. And if it's an action-filled lyric, I want the music to also reflect that, of course. So you get the story written, and then so the story needs to, or the album needs to start out with kind of a fast track. So that's a given. But then you need to write the music, what the lyrics dictate. So you can't just write a number of songs and then see what sticks. It has to be, in this particular order. And also, when you record an album, after it's done, after it's mastered, you go, okay, so this song turned out really good. We're gonna have this, have this as number one, and this is going to be number two, and these two tracks are going to be bonus material. You can't have the second chapter in a concept album be as bonus material. So you have to put so much more effort into writing everything and making sure that this is going to work. So from me being naive and thinking I was gonna, this is gonna be cool, concept album, a lot more work. So, but I'm happy, and that's why I'm anxious to see what people think about it. So
I think when you look at this album, I have to ask you this question because I think it plays a huge role into how the album turns out, which is having a vocalist like Angus. Does that give you a little bit more freedom to create that storyline, to create those ebbs and flows because of what he can give you at any single turn?
I think Angus is almost like a vocal chameleon. Like he can do whatever I ask him to. Or of course, he does his own interpretations also, but he has the best death metal voice, if you want it, the best black metal voice, and I guess if I asked him to sing, punk rock, he'd deliver too. But yeah, so that definitely that opens the possibilities to do kind of a whatever, which is, I have to say, which is one of the cornerstones of Witchery's music, that we've never boxed ourselves in. Kind of, it's always fun to release an album and try to see people, put a label on us, because there's always different kinds of things going on. And I mean, if we come up with a cool heavy metal riff, we'll use that. If it's a cool, I mean, I love AC/DC. If there's something about, AC/DC sounding that will work, we'll use that. If it's, has a blast beat, doesn't matter. So it's always cool to see people describe what we sound like and what we play. And with Angus, we can play whatever we want. Sorry for the long answers.
No. This is perfect. I mean, I'm trying to pick your brain so I can learn a little bit more about the record, and the folks watching us can learn a little bit more about the band and the album as well. So this is great. It's interesting that you say that, because I felt like this album had this duality to it. When I was listening to it, it was really hard for me to put it under one single umbrella, because some songs sound like a heavy metal track, but the vocals sound black metal. Some songs sound black metal, but the vocals sound more death metal. And that duality that exists on every single track creates a lot of ebbs and flows, natural ebbs and flows throughout the entire construction of the record. But the album at the same time still felt very balanced and very together. So how do you marry these two things? Is it the concept that gives it that sense of balance, or is there something else?
I think because I'm also a huge music lover, and I have 1,000 vinyls, and I read a lot of autobiographies and stuff. And what I've come to notice is that a lot of people focus on the ability to play, whereas I'm not a solo guitar player. I think there's so many more people practicing scales and arpeggios than there are people thinking about arrangements. And that is what I like to focus on. Like, how do you make a song memorable? What makes it catchy? It doesn't need to have, of course, there can be the solo of a Lifetime or whatever, but there needs to be something. Like, how do you make the beginning of a song catchy? In the age of Spotify, you give a song 5, 6, 7 seconds, and if it's not good, you just skip. So you need to catch the listener. So, and even the ending and the middle and whatever. So that's always what I've been focusing on, and I'll let other people practice doing solos. So I think maybe what you are hearing is kind of my way of arranging songs. Like, there's kind of like not even the playing style, it's just how the songs are constructed and built, and what's the word? Swedish is dramaturgi, how you build the drama in something. Yeah. So that it might be that what's keeping it together. So there's no matter if it's the cult sounding riff, I'm sorry, or black metal, it's still the kind of arrangement idea going behind it.
One of the things that's really important for me, and I thought you guys nailed it on this album, is not just the structure of the record. Obviously, was an important element because of the concept, but also the length of the album. Sometimes these kind of records kind of lose themselves within themselves, and then by doing that, you also lose the listener in the process. I felt like this record kind of walked that fine line, and it was absolutely perfect from the design to the length. Were you considering? I know you were considering the structure, but were you considering the length as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the record company told me it was too short. And then I asked them, I asked them this question: if you had, the Ride the Lightning is a great album, and Master of Puppets is a great album. If they came out at the same time on the same album, would it be a twice as good album? No, they say. Yeah, longer isn't always better. And what 100%. I tried to explain to them, and which they accepted, that it's like a meal. I mean, there's enough here on the plates that'll make the listener satisfied. I think that because I've done music for long enough to remember when everyone started to use a CD player. So you automatically, as soon as you loaded the CD in, you could see the total playtime. You didn't know that with vinyl. You had to do the math. And people, you know, if it felt short, they would do the math, or if it felt long. But if it felt enough, it was fine. But as soon as you could see that in that window, oh, it's only 39 minutes. I'm getting cheated out of 1 minute. I mean, you know, so that's also one thing that music is an experience. You need to, and I believe in the album formats. So if it's a concept album, it's meant to be, you know, of course you can listen to the songs, you know, individually too, but it's meant to be a concept album. And this is the length that I think works for it. So there very long answer again, but to answer your question, yes, there was some conscious thought about that.
And I think it's great because to me, I almost feel sometimes bands try to throw in like an interlude or something like an intro track, an outro, in order to extend the playability of the record, to push it into the 40-45 minute mark. And it's completely unnecessary. You're just adding fluff to a record, but it's not really adding any value to it whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree, totally.
So I love the fact that it wasn't long, because it also adds to the overall playability, because it makes you kind of want to press play again and go through the whole journey once again.
This is one of the first things I thought of as a young kid, that I'm also a big Priest fan. So why is Breaking the Law so popular? Because the riffs aren't really that good. And then it struck me that, I mean, the song is like 2.5 minutes. So maybe it is because you don't have time to grow tired of the song.
Yeah.
So there's also something to be said about short songs,
which a lot of people these days tend to kind of stay away from. I don't know. There's this idea that more is better, and I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, it's just because they see a number on the display.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. So you said that the album was created during the pandemic. Was that the fact that you guys were away from each other, not able to jam? Was that the biggest challenge that you were faced with this record, considering that's also a concept album, and maybe that threw a little bit of a different caveat at you?
I play in a band because it's also a social thing, because it's fun. I really love playing a great show, you know, the audience, the feedback and everything, but I also enjoy equally as much walking from a rehearsal, having solved something, and, you know, everyone is fired up because this riff is great, or these two riffs together are great. So that is something that keeps you going and motivated and so on. So that's a large part of why I play in bands. But now that when we couldn't meet up, everything had to be done on the computer. So there was less of that, instant feedback. So there was more work with putting everything together, you know, together with the lyrics, but also just because when you've sat with a riff for so long and then you finally find something that works with it, there's no one that goes, yay, in the corner. So you can, okay, so maybe this works. And then, you know, so I know people that prefer to write everything on their own and then present the whole thing, but I'd rather have, so what about this? And someone goes, yeah, fuck yeah. Oh, I didn't realize it was this good. And then you do, you know, add the drums and bass, and then all of a sudden this was fucking good. Sorry for the language.
Yeah, no, curse away.
Yeah, but then when you sit at home and you buy your guitar, you know, this riff is lame. No one will tell you after, you know, you sat there 10 hours and your ears are tired and everything, that no, that was a great riff. So I prefer rehearsing. This was more work, but also because I was doing it in the computer and I can throw things around and everything out. And it was a concept album. I had the opportunity to be more of the mad scientist. So I could, you know, put this here and there and just bounce things around enough times until, okay, so now it works in the concept album thing, if that makes sense.
Do you have a favorite? I know it's a hard question to answer, but do you have a favorite song on this album that perhaps you're really looking forward to playing it live?
We played Hellfest a few weeks ago, and we actually played a song off the album, because the first song that was out on video was Pope Crusher. So that was the only song at the time. So we played that live. That was great. I think a great song live will be Don't Burn the Witch, because that has that driving force to it that everyone can understand. You won't, someone who doesn't like blast beats or something won't be, put off by, it's a song that everyone can appreciate, I think.
I think it's one of the hookiest in the album.
Yeah, cool.
It's my favorite. I mean, it's my favorite. To me, it was like the first time going through the record, that track became a standout track immediately.
All right. Okay. Well, great. I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, it was easy to remember. The chorus kind of stays with you. It lingers with you, and then you don't even realize, but you're mumbling it even after the song is done, and you're doing something else. You keep mumbling because it has such a hookiness to it. There's this dark aroma that with it that it's such an incredible song. Definitely on my favorite list as far as the record goes.
All right, then it is going into the live set.
And you guys have to play in North America. You guys have to come to Toronto and play here so I can experience that live.
Yeah, we love playing in North America. I think that's actually where we have our strongest fan base, because we did that tour like 20 years ago now with Emperor. Toronto was the last show on that tour. Absolutely amazing show. And I also grew up in Canada, so of course I want to play Canada. But yeah. So,
you're due for a visit.
I am.
You talked about the creative process behind the music. I just want to ask you about the creative process behind the lyrics. So considering this was a concept, did you have some of the lyrics before you had some of the songs? How did you work on the lyrical content?
Yeah, so here's another thing that I also think that titles are important in heavy metal, at least, because there's no harm in having a title that someone drunk at a table in a metal bar, when the chorus hits, that the guy wakes up and just yells the title and then goes back to sleep. So there's no harm in that. So I try to make memorable titles. So first up, it was coming up with a story, and then kind of dividing everything, where things should go, then coming up with titles. So strong titles that still worked with the lyrics. I penned the lyrics. I had just kind of made a timeline, if that makes sense. Like, okay, so here's where this, Don't Burn the Witch is about the Inquisition, or this woman that's, being on trial. So that just said, trial or something. And then, so, okay, so that kind of, blah, blah, blah. And then once I had, what kind of song, what topic, if it's a fast, energetic kind of topic, then I know where to pace the songs. And yeah, so it was a little bit of being a mad scientist, actually. And also concept albums. One of the best concept albums ever is, of course, Operation Mindcrime. It's the music and everything is great. And I don't know if you're familiar with the album.
Yes.
Yeah, so in between some of the songs, there's these there's a car that drives up in the rain and the window goes down and he says kill the priest, or that kind of theatrical stuff. And that's always, I always like that, because it kind of puts a even greater atmosphere, like it paints a bigger picture. So that's also what I've like to do on many Witchery albums, but especially this one. So, like, for example, we talked about the song Don't Burn the Witch. So like the witch smeller comes to this village where this woman is to hold the trial, and after the first song you can hear the hoofs of a horse,
like a carriage,
slowly walking into the city. Not rushed, because this is a man of authority. So it just walks from, I think, your left ear to your right ear.
Right ear,
yeah. So someone is entering the city, and I like those kind of things, because it kind of adds the whole experience. Like there's a song on there called let's see, steht in Flammen, which in German it means that he stands in flames. So the Inquisition here in the old world, like in Europe in my case, you know, it was all over Europe, like the Catholic Church and the Inquisition, basically. And this is what she is fleeing when she, this woman, gets on a, you know, a creaky wooden Mayflower kind of ship and goes to the colonies to escape. But that's why I have these, they're supposed to be monks. So you kind of hear the chanting, and so they read from that old book. I think it's from the 1400s or something, The Witcher's Hammer. So it's in German, it's in English, and it's in Spanish. So I wanted to have, you know, the major languages of Europe, kind of, because it was all over, it was rampant. So, you know, to give kind of paint even bigger picture that this was something that was going on everywhere, even in Sweden. And yeah, and towards the end of the album, the last song, we also have some French in there. So I wanted to have languages that just, you know, make a bigger scene, create a bigger scene.
Yeah. Paint a more vivid picture. It's easier to. I feel like it's easier for the listener to also understand exactly where you are within the story. In case you got a little bit lost when you hear those elements, things become a little bit more real. You're adding a fourth dimension to what exists already just by listening to the music and listening to the lyrics.
Yeah.
One last question for you. As you perhaps now have a little bit of time to look back at the finished product, what do you feel is the biggest strength of this album?
The diversity of music, I think. Because there's some very energetic songs, there's some heavy songs, there are songs that people might consider to be hard rock, like Don't Burn the Witch. The variety, I think. It's not just your, you know, typical run-of-the-mill retro thrash albums. It's not, you know, retro heavy metal. It's not neo thrash. That's what I like about Witchery. It's somewhere in between, and the variety of our music on an album is our strength, I think. So that's what I'm most happy about.
Well, Jensen, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck to you and the guys with the release of the album on July 22nd through Century Media. Nightside, Witchery. Thank you once again.
Thank you.